Welcome to Live Your Balance, a podcast for busy humans who are curious about taking a step back from overwhelm so that they can create more balance in their lives. Hello and welcome back to Live Your Balance. How are you? I really hope you're doing well, and I'm so happy that you are here with us, joining us for this episode today. It's going to be a good one. It's been a busy week over at Elevate Wellness headquarters this week because I had the first call in my new 6-week group coaching container, the Live Your Balance Collective. And it's really funny, I was doing some reflecting on this week. I shared it on my Instagram stories. And if you don't follow me on Instagram, I would really encourage you to come over and join the gang because I post on my stories pretty much every single day. It's one of my favorite ways to connect with you. And I'm always posting new thoughts and content and value and tips and tricks and mini trainings on there. So there's loads and loads of extra goodies that you can get for being part of that community. I was reflecting on this on my Instagram stories because I'm a bit of a last minute Larry. I tend to not do anything before I really feel I need to do it. And I actually had a personality profile completed on me not that long ago. And in that personality profile, there was a line that said something along the lines of, Jordan tends to prefer being in the moment and so doesn't tend to plan or prepare more than she needs to. And when I read that, I was just like, that is so true. That is me to a T. And that is basically how I've got through life up till this point. I do what needs to be done in the moment, and then in the next moment I think about the next thing and the next thing. And whilst I've got an idea in my mind of where I'm going and what my plan is, and I have skills and strategies in place to help me hold in mind the bigger picture so that I don't lose that and just get so enthralled in this moment, I do have to really work in order to do that. But actually I think I've managed to get the balance pretty good this week. I had everything planned and prepared for the Live Your Balance Collective ahead of time, and the first group coaching call was fantastic in my opinion. That's not me tooting my own trumpet. It was fantastic because the ladies showed up and were open and honest and vulnerable and willing to learn and willing to engage, and that just fills me with joy. And I've still had time and space to look after myself and create my own balance because that's obviously something that's really important to me. I feel like I'd be a major hypocrite if I was talking about balance all the time and not doing what I needed to do to create my own balance. But these things continue to help me learn and grow and develop because building a business alongside a full-time job can sometimes throw loads of challenges up, and it really tests my ability to plan and prepare, given that that is not my natural state of being. But I think this week, my skills, the strategies I have in place, the support that I've created around myself has really helped me to find balance in that busy week, find balance in doing something extra to what I would usually do, because actually, for me, finding that balance is really important in order to help me keep moving my business forward and keep growing as a person and growing as a business and offering out more really valuable, life-changing stuff to you wonderful humans. So it's been a really good week. I've really enjoyed it. There's been lots to reflect on as well. And actually, this week, the podcast has also surpassed 150 downloads. So it blows my mind that there has been 150 times that somebody has listened to this podcast, this tiny baby podcast. We're on episode 7 and we've only been going since the very end of March. We're pretty much a month old and we've had 150 people download and listen to episodes. So from the bottom of my heart, if you have listened, if you have shared, if you have just taken anything from any of what I've shared in the podcast so far, I am so grateful and so appreciative of you. And the fact that you listen and you take the opportunity and make a choice to use some of your precious time to join me, that is just pure magic. It is really what I'm here for. And like I said, I'm so grateful and appreciative. So if you do listen to the podcast, I would love, 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 love for you to take a screenshot and share it on your Instagram stories. Give me a tag so that I can give you a shout out and a virtual high five, because you have no idea how much it makes my day when I see that another person has listened to the podcast, or when I get a notification to say that somebody's shared it or tagged me in listening to an episode. It really just fills me with so much joy. And I want this podcast to be available and be seen by as many people as possible, so that together we can all start creating and living our most balanced lives. So for those of you that are listening and joining me and taking it all in, I salute you, you're heroes, and I am so grateful for you. Anyway, shall we move on to how does she do it? Let's go. Welcome to How Does She Do It, the part of the show where we dive into finding out how our wonderful guest creates and lives her most balanced life. Each guest will answer the same 7 questions each and every week, so you can get a really great idea about how she does it, how she creates and lives her balance. This week's guest for How Does She Do It is the wonderful Kirsty. Kirsty is someone who I have met in the online space, and she's someone that I genuinely look at how she shows up and I wonder, just how does she do it? And that's what this segment is all about. It's about somebody having the opportunity to share the things that they do to help them do the stuff that's important, to help them have a meaningful life, to help them feel good and help them create and live balance in their own way. And I think this conversation with Kirsty is a really, really enlightening one that you're going to get so much value from. So without further ado, let's go. Question 1. Who are you? What do you do? And how do you spend your time?
Hey Jordan, thank you for having me on. I'm Kirsty D and I'm a coach for women, and I predominantly teach women how to feel really good about themselves and how to love themselves. My jam is like self-love and empowering women. And how do I spend my time? Well, I've got 2 kids, so obviously I'm doing the mothering thing. But the main thing that I do is I show up online and I do live videos and online coaching programs, and I'm currently writing a book, and it's all about just helping women feel really good about themselves, because the thing that I really realized is you can have all the things that you've always wanted in your life, but if you don't feel good, you won't ever feel good. You won't ever really feel the way that you desire to feel. And the things that we want, it's often because, in fact always, because we think having them will make us feel a certain way, which in reality, if you don't like yourself, because you have to take yourself wherever you go, that's not true. And I think we all know that, but for me, it's like the deep self-love work that really, really changes and shifts everything. So yeah, that's what I do in a nutshell. Help women to feel really good about themselves and to love themselves.
Question 2. What do you feel like you're good at when it comes to managing your time, including making time to look after yourself?
What I do to manage my time, and to be honest, I don't think I'm the best at managing my time. I think that is definitely not one of my strongest skills, which is why it's great that we have people like yourself coaching on this. Where I feel like I really excel at is kind of prioritizing the things that are going to make me feel good, things that are going to make me feel my best. Because I'm somebody who gets really super passionate about a lot of things. I get really, really ambitious about a lot of things. So there tends to be a lot going on in my head. So for me, it's not really so much about how I manage my time, because as I say, that's definitely not my strong point. It's really about really prioritizing the things that are most important to me, which I think is something that I'm really, really good at. And I have the discipline to see things through, things that I really want to do. And in terms of making time to look after myself, I really practice every day, living really, really intentionally, waking up and thinking what do I want to get out from today? How can I make today the very best day? So yeah, living really, really intentionally, I would say.
Question 3. What's your biggest challenge when it comes to balance?
So my biggest challenge when it comes to balance is kids. Like, I've got 2 kids at the moment. I'm homeschooling because of like the lockdown and everything that's going on. I'm not sure when this podcast is going out. But obviously at the moment we're like in a lockdown situation. So for me, it's definitely managing what I do around the kids. So for me, it's not so much about balance, and I guess we'll all define balance differently, but it's really about how I can feel more centered throughout the chaos. Because for me, like, my life's quite chaotic. It never actually, to be honest, feels that balanced. So for me, it's just like, how can I feel more centered with the chaos, and how can I make sure that, I'm really taking care of myself? But I never, to be honest, feel like my life is very balanced, and I don't really strive for that. I feel like you want to be balanced just so that you feel centered and you feel good. That's kind of my take on it, and I'm not sure what your take on it is. But so for me, it's just like, how can I make sure through the chaos that I'm looking after myself?
Question 4. What do you do to help you juggle everything that you need to juggle?
What do I do to juggle everything that I need to juggle? So for me, again, it comes down to like really, really prioritizing the most important things, and to giving myself a lot of grace and a lot of compassion, and realizing that we go to the grave with a to-do list. There will always be something to do. And I really love the quote. I think it's like a Lao Tzu quote where it says like, nature never rushes, yet it gets everything done. So I really believe that anything that's meant to get done will get done. And I'm currently in a coaching program, and one of the things that she talks about and really ingrains in us is to trust in timing, not time. Because for me, when everything's about a time scale and when it has to get done by, you always live your life in lack, always feeling like you've never got enough done. So for me, I try and focus on like what I've got done within a week or what I've got done within a month, rather than like day to day. So for me, it's really about just having a lot of grace with myself and realizing that I don't have to do it all, that I never need to get it all done. And as I say, recognizing that it's actually not self-loving to feel like we need to get it all done. And it ends up just becoming like another to-do list, another thing to feel like we failed at. So for me, like, I give myself permission to not feel like everything needs to get done, and that I'm not a to-do list, and, like, my best is enough. And I feel like our best is always enough. And sometimes we need to remind ourselves of that, and to really not put so much on our plate. Like, not everything needs to get done. A lot of the times I feel like we set ourselves up for like to fail, really, because we put so much on our plate. And I feel like if we got super, super honest with ourselves, a lot of the things we don't actually need to do. But a lot of the times we're like hustling for our worth and, trying to get everything right and, being, perfectionists. And I feel like that really, really hurts us. So for me, it just comes down to really, really prioritizing like what's the most important thing, and giving myself permission to not need to get it all done, and to just wing it a lot of the times, in all honesty, and to just kind of like realize it doesn't have to be perfect, and to just not compare myself.
Question 5. What's your go-to for when you feel overwhelmed?
Nature is always my go-to. I just love spending time outside, Mother Earth, really getting grounded. At the moment we're in a lockdown, so that's not possible. So it will be like journaling and stuff. But actually, no, I thought of something else, actually. Something that I do every day, and it's not so much to deal with overwhelm, but I feel like it just helps me stay more centered and to feel really, really good, which I like really helps to stop me from getting overwhelmed, is every single day I will listen to something positive. Like literally every single day, I'm always doing this. So whether it's like, I really like whether it's another coach that I really, really like. I may watch one of their live videos, whether it's like a podcast or something, but I'm always putting something, kind of in my subconscious, because for me, overwhelm is like, obviously like the monkey mind thing where we feel like we have to get everything done. And for me, it's like realizing that we don't have to get everything done, and to really like lean into trust. And where am I trying to prove myself? Where am I thinking I'm not enough? So for me, it often comes down to the self-love work, which is why I'm so passionate about that. For me, like, empowerment isn't a destination to get to, it's a moment-to-moment choosing. So if I catch myself feeling overwhelmed, I really got to tune in with myself and where am I striving? Where do I feel like this needs to get done? And does it actually need to get done? Or am I just feeling like I'm not enough? And okay, well, what's that telling me? What can I work on? So it's always that like cliche of like the inner work.
Question 6. What's one habit you do to look after yourself every day that's non-negotiable?
So I feel like I've already said this in number 5, but I guess my non-negotiable would be I listen to something positive every day without fail. I sell audios on my website, and the reason I created these audios was because when I kind of started my whole kind of like journey with what I'm doing now, and my whole thing is like choose to rise, because I went through this really, really like bad place, and I feel like we've all probably like been there at some point in our lives where we feel really low, where we feel just really at that kind of rock bottom. And for me, like it was audios that got me through that. It was literally putting something like into my like subconscious that was really, really like feeding it with something that was really empowering. And for me, that was actually like self-love stuff, because for me it was, like I said in the introduction, like wherever you go, you've got to take yourself. I think I said that anyway. And if you don't like the person who looks back at you in the mirror, you're going to have a real hard time enjoying your life or feeling enough. So the one thing that I do every single day is like I calibrate up to other people that inspire me, who I feel like, yeah, they're really, really going for it. And I'm not talking about like, somebody that's, a million steps ahead of me, because I spent years in the personal development, self-help scene. And a lot of that, to be honest, can be because we don't feel enough and we're looking for a fix. So we spent years watching, and listening to those things and actually not really moving, not really creating a life that made me feel really good. So what I started to do is I started to watch people who were like doing the thing and a few steps ahead of me. And it really helped me to see that, this is possible. And it really helped me to get moving, because I'd been watching and listening to all this stuff for years, but I kind of just thought, yeah, that's for other people and it's not for the likes of me. I really had that mentality of it doesn't happen for people like me, and yeah, it'll work for them, but it won't work for me. So the thing that I do to like take care of myself, I make sure that I'm paying attention to people that really inspire me and motivate me, and people that I really, really feel like, yeah, I can calibrate up to them. And then as I do that, I start calibrating up to people who are going for even bigger things. But I think quite often we don't feel good enough and we don't succeed in the things we want, is because we feel like the gap is too big. And yeah, I can't do that because I'm not confident enough, or I can't do that because I have kids, or I can't do that because my financial situation. But there'll always be somebody like lighting the path, like giving clues. We live like, in a time where there's so many resources online. So for me, it's finding the person that will activate you, that will get you moving, like literally get you moving your butt to do the things that are going to make you feel good so that you can have the life you want. Because we all know like certain things, certain habits and stuff make us feel better, but yet we don't do them. And a lot of that time is because we have like this like subconscious processing, which obviously, is our habits and stuff. And those things can be really, really hard to break unless we do that mindset work. So for me, it's making sure I put something really, really positive into literally like feeding that into my subconscious every single day.
Question 7. What does creating a balanced life mean to you?
This one made me laugh, actually. It was like, what does creating a balanced life mean to you? And I feel like this is just why, like, we need you doing what you do, Jordan, because I feel like, for me, like, you know, as I said, like, I never feel like balance. So for me, I would probably change that word to, and you probably get people to do this anyway, to define, you know, balance for them. But for me, it's just, I guess, living centered. And even then, I never really feel like my life's that centered. And for me, it's just like, I want to just create joy, and I want to just feel really good. And I want to, you know, live each day the very, very best. So for me, it's like, what can I do to create that? How can I create more joy in my life? Because I feel like the misconception is that we don't create joy, but we do. Like, none of us are entitled to it. I feel like every single person is worthy of joy, is like worthy, they're enough. Like, there's nobody born not enough, but we're not entitled to feel good. It doesn't come by accident. It actually takes work. Like, being happy actually takes work. And sure, we can have moments where, you know, something happens and we feel really, you know, happy and we feel really good. But I feel like, you know, happiness, like, you know, the state of being happy is fleeting, because, you know, something will happen and you won't like that. And those are really, really, like, you know, normal emotions to have. So for me, it's like, how can I make every single day as joyful as possible? And so I guess actually this is where the balance thing comes into it. I'm not trying to strive for joy and happiness every single day, because I feel like in doing that, we set ourselves up for a fall. Like, I know there'll be like ebbs and flows. So I guess this is where the balance comes in. But what I do intentionally do is make sure that I'm keeping my side of the street clean by being really intentional about how I'm living my life and how I can bring in more joy. Like, what am I doing every day to help myself feel really good? What am I doing every day to help myself thrive? What am I, like, you know, how am I taking care of myself? Am I being intentional? Am I living my life as a to-do list? Like, what am I doing? Do I take a moment to really think about what I want and how I can, you know, feel better, and how I can make the best with whatever season, whatever's going on in life? So for me, creating balance is, how can I really, really, like, create the very best life with whatever season, whatever we're going through.
A big thank you goes to Kirsty for taking the time to join us today on the Live Your Balance podcast, and for sharing her wisdom so openly and honestly. It is so, so appreciated. One thing that came through in what Kirsty shared, which I feel really does link with creating and living more balance in our lives, is this idea of living with intention. And I thought that's something that we would then dive a little bit deeper in today and consider what that actually means, what it looks like, and how you might start going about it. Because let me tell you, living with intention will help you to start to create more balance in your life, even if it's just moment-to-moment balance, and balanced in the here and now rather than thinking about long term. And actually, this is a really lovely follow-on from last week's episode where we talked about values, as once you've identified your own personal most important values, then you can start to align with them and start living with more intention when it comes to those values. And as much as Kirsty highlighted that she struggles with the term balance, as that's something that she doesn't always feel like she achieves in her own life with everything that she has going on, I picked up that there's many things that she does do to support her to feel good, to feel grounded, and to feel centered, even if that's only moment to moment, which actually very much aligns with our message and philosophy here around creating and living your balance. One thing I think it can be valuable to remember about balance is that it's not just about the end point, which is your balance vision, the destination that you're heading to. It's about the journey that you take each and every day, moment to moment, to help you get there. And that's where creating and living your balance becomes intentional. So let's start off with thinking about what we actually mean when we say living with intention. So an intention is doing something with an aim or a purpose behind it. So much of living modern life is often done without real choice and intention. It's done through pure habit, because that's what I've always done, or feeling societal pressure, that's what everybody else does, that I must do too. Or maybe it's emotionally driven. We have feelings of guilt because we should be doing this or that, or anxiety because you should be achieving those life goals and life targets, or shame because that's not a mainstream interest. So doing that must make me weird, and I don't want people to think that I'm weird. These examples come from a place of unconscious action. The intent here isn't truly intentional. It's our brain just trying to keep us safe and keep us in the gang. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because none of this is about what's right or wrong or good or bad. They're judgments. But it's also not the only way. And I know that I used to live my life from this pretty unintentional space. And you know what? I wound up feeling pretty miserable, pretty anxious, pretty unfulfilled. And I really attribute that to the fact that I was betraying my own needs and my own values again and again and again and again. So living with intention would be making a conscious choice to act or pursue or to do. And I want to stress the word conscious. That conscious choice is made with your values at the heart of it. Intentional living happens when we start to live a life that consciously aligns with our values, or at the very least, consciously helps us move closer to aligning with our values. Intentional living also involves acknowledging what's within your power to control and taking ownership of that. Intentional living wouldn't be sitting in the space of being the victim, where everything is happening to you and you don't have any power or control to make or affect change in your life. Intentional living requires you to step into the role of the creator, taking responsibility for what's within your control and creating a life that aligns with what feels good and what's most important to you. So why would we live a life of intention? Is living consciously and intentionally the easiest path to walk? Honestly, no, it's not always. It might require you to let go of old patterns, let go of old thoughts and beliefs that aren't serving you, and that can feel so bloody uncomfortable. And in my experience, it felt much worse at the beginning, because when I started living with more intention, it meant letting go of so much stuff that wasn't serving me. But as you start to really step into your values and what you believe to be of importance to you, it does become easier, and you become more skilled at navigating any discomfort, because not only have you learned how to move through it, but you know why you're doing it and you know what you're aligning with. We live in a world of instant gratification. We're so used to being able to get hold of stuff in a nanosecond, whether that be information, communication, people, attention, money, things. And whilst in so many ways that's amazing that we have access to so much value at our fingertips, it kind of teaches us to trade off long-term for the short-term. We move towards a short-term need or discomfort and lose sight of the bigger picture, which can also include our values. And I know that sometimes I fall into this because I'm very much an in-the-moment person, and I can find it quite hard to keep my eye on the bigger picture. So I'm sure it's something that you can relate to as being a challenge as well. Intentional living, though, can help us on the path to creating a life that truly feels good. A life where we're creating and living our balance each day because we're tuned into our needs and we're not constantly trading off our goals or our vision for a short-term hit. Which means that living in a more intentional way can help us in bringing our goals and bringing our vision to life. Thoughts create actions and actions create reality. So if we're taking purposeful action in an intentional way towards what's important to us, then we get to create that in our lives. Intentional living can also help guide us towards slowing down. Life can be really bloody busy. We live in a society that perpetuates busy, and I know at the moment things are a bit weird and upside down, and to some degree that really busy, pressured element has been removed from us, which actually I'm not mad about. I'm quite enjoying it. And I know Kirsty in her interview talks about a to-do list always being never-ending, and she's right, there's always going to be more that you could be doing. But are all of those things that you could or should or would be doing being done with intention? Or are they just busy work? Are they just being done because you feel like you should do them? Intentional living helps us strip back the extra. It helps us strip back the unnecessary, the stuff that we do because we feel like we should, rather than doing it because it actually lines up with what's important to us. The stuff that we do because that's what we're told makes us valid and worthy because of adulting, when actually the thing that will support our self-worth more than anything is aligning with what is truly, truly important to us and then doing the work to do that. Because through all of this, living with intention allows us to connect with ourselves. We can lean into what works and what doesn't work for us. We can learn what drives us and what triggers us, and then learn how to navigate that with intention. And we can start showing up for ourselves and what we hold to be most important each and every day. Intentional living requires honesty. Intentional living requires vulnerability. Intentional living requires knowing and liking ourselves enough to start looking out for our own wants, needs, desires, and values. So how do we start living with more intention? That's today's $1 million question. And I have 5 tips for you today that I hope will help you start living a life with more intention and subsequently help you create and live more balance in your life through aligning with what's most important to you. So tip number 1 is to get clear on your values. And if you haven't done this yet, go back to episode 6 and listen to that episode where I guide you through a couple of journaling prompts to help you start getting really clear on what your values are, what's most important to you. Because it's really hard to live a life of intention if you're not sure what you're being intentional of. Tip number 2 is to then get clear on your vision. Know where you want to end up and what you're trying to create in your life in aligning with those values, in aligning with what's most important to you. This helps you to create a roadmap of the intentional actions that you can then take each and every day to help bring that vision to life into this reality. With a vision, you're not flailing blindly in the dark, going into the unknown, not really knowing which route you're taking. And remember, a vision isn't set in stone. It can be changed as you go and as you grow, but it's so valuable in helping you get started. Tip number 3 is to start becoming more aware of your thoughts and emotions, and that would be being mindful. If you've followed me for any period of time, you've probably heard me talk about mindful noticing because it's something that I'm a huge advocate of. Really, it's a freaking superpower. Mindful noticing creates conscious awareness of your experience in this moment. So with conscious awareness, we can then make more conscious choices. Being aware of your thoughts and emotions and acknowledging them in the moment doesn't make them stick around forever. What it does is it allows you to see them come and go. It allows you the choice to choose if you actually need to act, knowing that the emotions and thoughts will move on their way without you having to push them. And that can be so, so valuable, especially when we find ourselves trading off the short-term need and the long-term. Tip number 4 is to practice compassion for yourself and for other people. Intentional living is a journey, and you starting to live a more intentional life might trigger intense emotions in yourself, but also in other people. And that doesn't mean that you should stop being intentional. Sometimes the most compassionate thing we can do for ourselves is to act with compassion through the challenge of building an intentional life. And for other people, one of the most compassionate things we can do is to reflect back to them what they're projecting onto us, but from a place of love and compassion. And it's important to remember to balance your compassion for other people with compassion for yourself, because you're worthy and deserving of living a life that feels good. You're worthy and deserving of a life of balance and intention. Tip number 5 is to learn from your challenges or slip-ups or the times that you found it really hard. Humans are perfectly imperfect. We make mistakes. That's part of being a human. We're fallible. The valuable thing in this process is to acknowledge when we have a little slip up or a wobble or when things don't go entirely to plan or as we might wish them to, and use it as an opportunity to learn. Use it as an opportunity to grow, to expand your awareness, to expand your knowledge, so that if that situation was to play out again or in a similar way in the future, you can use that knowledge to act in a different way, to choose a different path, to be intentional in a different way. And that gives you so much power. So as a little recap, those tips are: number 1, get clear on your values. Number 2, get clear on your vision. Number 3, start becoming more aware of your thoughts and emotions in a mindful way. Number 4, practice compassion for yourself and for other people. And number 5, learn from your challenges, slip-ups, or the things that you found really hard. Give yourself some time and space to reflect on these tips and reflect on what intentional living means and looks like to you. And if you have any more questions or queries, then you can head on over to the Elevate Wellness Gang on Instagram, and I would love for us to continue the conversation there. Thank you so much for joining us today for this episode, and a huge thank you to Kirsty for taking the time to share how she does it and for inspiring the discussion that we've had in the episode too. As always, I will leave Kirsty's links and where to find her in the show notes, which I'm actually hoping by the time this episode goes live will be hosted on my website. Might not be. Let's see how productive I can be on that this afternoon and evening. Anyway, head below and it will either have the link there or it will direct you to its page on my website to find out more about Kirsty and where you can find her. And that is everything for today. So I really hope to see you with us next week. And I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and whenever you're listening to this. If you've enjoyed this episode of Live Your Balance, then please consider leaving a rating or review in whichever app you use to listen to your podcast. It's greatly appreciated and helps more people find the podcast so that more people can join us in living their balance too. That's all for today. So until next time, don't forget to keep living your balance.